I don't want to hear any more grief from you. Are we going anywhere? So you don't want us to get not go on like oil and water.
Oh my gosh. Hey.
That's why it works.
Oh.
See, I've been wondering what was going down there. Back when it sounded like it was supposed to be 10.
So Schroeder's all set to be public. Julie. Julia, well, John and me. Yeah. Oh,
You can probably start the.
Good, see what happens. Out the door.
Oh,
We got a couple of things going on here today. The first thing we're gonna do is we have a public hearing to accept some free money, I guess you'd call it free, $41,349.15 from the New Hampshire State Aid to Municipalities, which is for maintenance, construction, and reconstruction of municipal-owned bridges only. So, don't even ask if they wanna build a garage or anything like that, it's gotta be on the bridge, so. Anyway, and free money, as I said, it doesn't look just much.
God bless you many times.
Thanks.
So,
It's
you
not
want-
one.
Do we need to ask for comments, or do we just make a motion to accept it?
I suppose if anyone had.
Yeah, if you had any comments about free money.
About taking
It is a
40.
hearing.
Yeah.
Anybody? No?
No.
Okay.
Well, I will make a motion to accept the $41,349.15 from the New Hampshire State Aid to Municipalities for bridge maintenance, construction, and reconstruction.
And I will second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye. There we go. Okay,
Nice.
all right. Well, let's.
Spend it all in one place, please.
I was thinking Valley
Yeah,
Crossroads.
think of that bridge?
yeah, that was the bridge I was thinking of.
Okay, now.
Unless something bad.
Regular selectmen's meeting to order, and we're gonna do the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good. Now, the problem with the approved minutes is the John's not here, so.
Yeah. You can skip over that and wait till he comes back.
Okay, all right. Why don't we get into Dave's in the facilities committee survey that we have here? Right? Because I think we're ready
You're
for it.
number one.
You're number one, we wanted to make sure we got Dave and Jim, sorry. Does everybody have a copy? Do we have a lot of copies or just a few? Okay, but Dave, that's all right, just describe it.
We'll wait for Mr. Allen to settle in.
That's right, we just got rid of public hearing.
All right.
Let's just back up just one
Okay.
second, so we can approve the minutes that I wasn't here for, so.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting of January 10th.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye. Done. Check.
Done. Okay, all right, back to the
Oh,
facility.
back to me. Thank you. I just wanted to thank everybody on the committee that worked with us throughout the year, who put their time and effort into helping us figure out what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it, and the community at large as well for voting for the warrant article so we could do what we did. So I really appreciate, and I got to meet a lot of great people in the community that I didn't know well before, so thank you all for doing that. So we were tasked with, last year, the community, we had some disconnects in our community between the fire station and the school and some big projects, so we decided to take a step back and the school board work with the selectmen to say, what is the community at large looking for? What do we have in our community? So we have a lot of new people in our community over the last 20 years since we did some town planning, and those types of things. So just really taking a look at what was going on in our community and kind of coming together as a chance to come together in our community to say what we want before we start another town plan or do anything major in our community. So we worked together, we came up with a survey out to the community, which we sent out to about 1,500 people. We got 353 responses, which is outstanding. As well as we did a whole separate document to educate the community at large as to what facilities we own, as well as what facilities are perceived that the town owns. So there's a lovely document online, that happened, and land and those types of things. So there's a document that's on the website now that shows like the Whitney Center and the library and who owns them and how it works and what services are offered through them. So it's a great educational tool for the community as well. So we have our survey results and we would like to pass them off. We're going to discuss them. Like to pass them off to the town, back to the selectmen to say, they're back to you now. This is a great foundation for a town plan. And we'd like to pass it off to the town plan board. If there's anything else that the selectmen would like us to do, we'd be happy to discuss it moving forward. And I think that's about it, but we would like to hold this accountable. A lot of people put their time and effort into this. Citizens responded, and we would like to ask that there be an agenda item on every meeting moving forward for facilities and what is being done with the information that we're providing. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Campbell, who took a lot of his personal time, effort, and expertise. If anybody needs his services for surveys, I highly recommend him. So he's going to review the information that we have, and if you have questions, we're both here.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
And I do charge on an hourly basis, so. Yeah. So again, like Jen said, we sent out the survey via mail with a link to it. We also had created some flyers that we posted at the town office and the post office with a QR code that people could just read up and then go to this website and fill out the survey. And like she said, we got 353 surveys back and sending out about 1,500. That's a pretty good return rate of any survey that you get. And if it's permissible, this somehow could be posted somewhere on our website now that once you guys get it. So
It's on the website.
Yeah.
It's on the
It's
website.
It's already up, so.
Yeah.
Moving on today.
Yeah, it's the results. Didn't know it had to go out before they saw it. So the survey went out to, just a minute, the survey went out to all taxpayer owners. So they not necessarily residents, but you could be part-time residents, you could be owners of a resident. So that's where the 1,500 came out. But no surprise, 70% of the people that responded were residents of the town that answered the response. 8% were seasonal, but it is interesting, 20% didn't even give us an answer. And that's that's one of the downsides of all surveys you do. People don't answer all the questions unless you make it mandatory. And we don't want to make any question mandatory that it needs to be answered. We also looked at the age breakdown of the age groups of people that were responding to the survey. Again, 20%, the highest percentage was 20% of the population, and they were ages 61 to 70 were the people answering the survey. And then also, again, really across the board, the age group of 41 to 50 was about 13%, and 51 to 60 was about 14%. So, we got a pretty decent age range of groups, and I think if you think about Jackson, that age group of 61 to 70 does probably match a large portion of the people that live here in this town. So one of the things we asked was services that you currently use. So the purpose was, what do people know and services that we have available, and what do they use the most? So there's a way for us to figure out maybe what we could either improve on or just get a sense of what people use. And again, no surprise, the post office and the transfer station were number 2 and number 1 of the responses. Everybody has mail and everybody has trash, so that was a no surprise. It was interesting that, again, number 2 was the town office, cross-country skiing, and being a relatively new person this past weekend clearly showed that is something that's used a lot in this town this past weekend. So that was no surprise. Riverwalk, So there's a lot of things that people use that were outdoor, which again, no surprises of what we want. And this was really a survey just to say, what do people use in this town? There is a program called the Jackson Neighbor Care Program. No one uses that program. So I don't know if that's a communication service or something that needs to be out, but like no one, there was only 6 people that ever said they used that program. So it was kind of interesting. And Meals on Wheels, you know, the Gibson Center offers Meals on Wheels. It is available to people in Jackson. Nobody's ever used it. So again, how...
No one that filled out the survey.
No one that filled out the surveys used that service. Then we wanted to find out what people like about this town. What do they love, quote, love about this town and why they want to live here. And again, no surprise, it was the peacefulness of the town. Okay? That had the highest response to everybody working and living in this town, was the peacefulness of the town. And second, again, no surprise, walking trails and hiking trails. That's what people are drawn to this town. So the peacefulness, the walking trails, number 1 and number 2 of our survey. Again, how can we use this information to find out facilities that we have? Of course, the library, and then the people in the town, us. People come here, enjoying everything else in the neighborhood that we live in. Okay, the other thing is we wanted to know how people get their news, how people learn about things, how people find out about either new services, new things, new programs, or what it is. No surprise, e-news, number 1. Okay? I wasn't surprised. I get e-news, I read it every time I get it. So e-news was number 1. Now, this isn't the most reliable source, but friends and neighbors.
Yeah, that's
Is number 2 on how people get their information. So, we question why people misunderstand what they get and don't understand everything about what's going on. We always all remember that game telephone, right? And then the third, which again is sometimes not all the most reliable, is the Conway Sun. It's the third way people get their information in this town. So, again, Jackson website, not high on the list. Town meetings, somewhat high. But again, e-news, so for us as learning is how do we want to pass the word, how do we want to educate people. E-news, according to this survey, is something that's clearly something that people use. So then we started getting into the meat of the subject of what we were looking for, is what services do people perceive that we need here? Okay? What are we missing? Everyone knows what we love, everybody knows what we use, and everybody knows how we communicate, but what are we missing? Now, according to the survey, and again, I don't think this is going to be a surprise. It wasn't a surprise to me for all the talking we've had over the past few years. But so we asked them, and we gave them a list. We asked them to rank them from 1 to 5. What's the most important thing that you think versus what's in 5 on your list? Okay? So the one that, the choice that we got that was number 1. Can you answer that?
I already know the answer, so I can't.
No, answer the phone. Somebody's got to know if their phone ringing.
Hey, is it your phone?
Somebody's ringing.
All right.
Okay. No, I wasn't answering for the answer.
I'm paying attention to the meeting.
Affordable housing got the most number 1 responses. Affordable housing. Number 2 that got the most responses was additional walking and hiking trails. Okay. Number 3, which I know the board is working on this, is internet access. More internet access for the town across the, I know that they're working on that. And number 4, number 5 that got the most was improvement to the fire station and improvement to the grammar school. So, the people that answer this survey, those are the 5 things that people ranked number 1 in that list. Okay? Now, affordable housing was actually listed in everyone's answer. It was either 1, 2, 3, or 5. Everyone put it down as part of the answer. Everyone. Improvement in firehouse and the fire station, that was also kind of in almost everyone's answer. Energy resources, energy needs. Some of the people wrote in the comments next to things, this was more like solar power. Some people said, how come we can't put the wires underground to prevent power outages? You know, things that probably aren't physically possible, but those are some of the things they were talking about. Energy resources that we need. And the other one that got a lot of traction was older adult services. Now, I'm not sure if they are aware of the services that are available, but they're looking for like adult daycare, adult services that they have to do.
That actually ranks second, by the way,
Yeah.
according to your
Yep.
statistics you had.
Maybe I'll put it in e-news, what's available.
Yeah, what we're gonna do is we'll talk, keep going, because,
It's all sign them all up for Meals on Wheels.
yep,
But adult services were on a lot of people's
Yeah,
list.
it's fascinating.
yeah.
So,
What are the services?
additional parking was also added. Was, additional parking and signage of where parking is. We then asked, some open-ended questions. And as someone that does surveys for a living, I hate open-ended questions because God knows what you got, right? But I was forced to put it in, so here they are. Services that they see in other communities that we don't have. Okay, so what are some of the things that people are seeing in other communities? So again, I had 353 surveys to look through words to kind of see what matches. So the themes that I pulled out of those was transportation. So older adult service transportation, like being able to go to Conway, get somebody to drive you or get you to Conway. Doctor's appointments, so transportation services. I don't think nobody put, like, we should have a bus line here, but they needed that. Recreational services. And that was more like, we have a nice park, but the playground is in the school. There's no playground for kids. There's no services. If you bring young children here, there's nothing for them to do except the park across the street. There's no public swimming pool that people can use. Okay? That was on a few people's list that they wanted a swimming pool. Pickleball was the other thing, that we don't have a pickleball court in town.
It's 3 miles away. It's not
I'm just saying, that's what they think we should have in this town. That's what they're seeing in other communities that they visit and go to is here. But again, is it communication? Is it making sure people know that the pickleball is 3 miles away and this is what?
I know it.
So,
Exactly.
remember this survey was anonymous, so I have no idea who wrote the answers. This was another one that was interesting. This came up quite often.
2 miles.
Morning transfer station hours. Okay? That, they said, why couldn't this say, like most people are like, why couldn't we have a morning weekend? Or a morning during the week that we can go to the transfer station?
We might, okay. What we have to do is, because we run the place with Bartlett, okay, so we have to have a public hearing, even just to talk about changing the hours. And then you need 2 members on each board to agree. Now, Bob, the guy who's running the show up there, said, what would be good is if we had hours for standard daylight time and for daylight savings time. So daylight savings time will only be 12 to 6, but when we get to standard time, we'll go to 10 to 4. Same amount of hours, because no one ever goes up there at night. So maybe that would be a good idea. So again, we're gonna have a public, I hope to, we have to get to that. And then I'm hoping that we get 2 votes out of Bartlett, because I know we have 2 here.
Right.
And then we can do that. So that's what
So this is some of the low-hanging fruit
Yeah,
that we'd like on the
exactly.
agenda for next time, not to be solved today.
we can't until we get.
The other one was charging stations for electric cars. We don't have it. So, and of course, affordable housing. It's on the list, okay? So those were some of the things, and that was some of the things we saw potentially as low-hanging fruit that could we do? Could we put a couple of charging stations in this parking lot next door? To promote electric cars. The other open-ended question we asked was, what is changing, what's concerning you about the changes in Jackson? Okay. Well, again, number one, most common theme I think everyone mentioned, short-term rentals. That was what most people said they don't like to see. Not enough young people and families moving into the town. I want to see more younger people moving into town for children. Lack of diversity in our town. Okay. And of course, overcrowding at the falls. And this one was interesting, and it was somewhat common. That Jackson is losing its rural character. Don't see any big tall buildings going up here, so I'm not sure what was that, but that was actually the wording that a lot of people use. We're losing that rural, small town atmosphere.
David, just a quick comment on overcrowding at Jackson Falls. I also noted that which facilities you used, you had 0 the number of people who
That's correct.
used Jackson Falls. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
That is correct.
So it's overcrowding because of not people in town.
Right. That is correct. The falls, there was no one saying they used the falls. And then changes that are not occurring. Now, some people may think the first question and this question are somewhat the same, but they were slightly worded differently. But basically, the changes that are not occurring. So things that they're seeing, changes that should have happened in this town, and that goes back to that services for seniors, family-oriented services, like the parks. And this one was interesting, and again, this was someone on a lot of people. The maintenance of the town's common areas. The park, the sidewalks, the tree removal, snow plowing. They see that changing and not occurring. And then housing for elderly and family and workforce. And then here they use actually workforce housing in their comments, not just affordable housing. And then better parking in the village. And again, just for our purposes, when we looked at all the surveys, affordable housing or workforce and elderly housing clearly is an issue for the people that answered the survey. That was something that they think we need to deal with. Increase recreational services, pickleball, playground, basketball courts, bike trail along Ellis River was somebody's suggestion. I don't know if that's even feasible. And upgrades to town facilities and their appearance, fire stations, schools, sidewalks, and parking. And find ways for renewable energy use, solar, geothermal alternatives, and electric car parking at stations. And then a lot of people actually said how we could put limitations on short-term rentals. So that's a summary of the response. Any questions?
I just want to add some comments on there as far as what you mentioned when we went over the final survey, that affordable housing is outside of the scope of what this committee was challenged to do. So while it was a common theme as well as short-term rentals, yes, we're seeing it, but it's not something that is part of what this committee was tasked to do. So yes, we know that information now, but it's not something that we're gonna go, who wants to buy some property and build some affordable housing? So that's not even low-hanging fruit. And we are using the term low-hanging fruit because there are some things on here that we can get done pretty quickly. And so, as being the selectman representative on the committee, we want to task our board now with either furthering the committee's work by saying, do you want to create subcommittees to communicate to the community that we have older adult services. I'm the president of the board at Gibson Center. We have older adult services that we're going to bring to Jackson and educate people on, so when the community knows it's here. And Emily works on the Mount Washington Valley Age-Friendly Steering Committee. So that's something that we can bring right away, educate the people, have an open house at J-Town was suggested or something, so we can let people know what's available. The additional parking, we want to educate people on where the parking is in town. If it's better signage, if it's a link on the website, if it's something that says public parking is available next to the library, behind the Historical Society, at the Jackson Falls area, there's resident parking, anything that we can do to educate and communicate to everyone that filled this out and had these issues. That's what our goal is for the low-hanging fruit and our really quick fixes, so we can say to the community, we heard what you said. When we get to the bigger things, like the improvements to the fire station and the school, that's gonna be tasked more towards what do we do as the town committee, the select board, the planning board, and where do we go from there? This was all brought about because of the warrant articles for the school and the fire station. So it may seem that that's muddled in here, but it's not. It really says that these are concerns still, but we have a lot of other concerns and issues and subjects that we can tackle. But we need to figure out, well, one of the questions was, would you be willing to increase the taxes to pay for these improvements? And of course, you know, that's sort of a loaded question. Everybody's like, oh, of course, absolutely. Nobody said yes, but you'd put it out there as a consideration. So those are things that need to be discussed and brought forward so they don't, like Bill Kelly was concerned about, so they don't die in the water right now. So that's my comments as the select representative on the committee, and I'll leave it at that.
One thing I'm wondering about here, when you say changes not occurring in Jackson, and it says maintenance of town common areas, snow plowing, tree removal, and
Yeah.
sidewalks, well, why do we want to change them? We've been doing
They
it.
haven't.
No, they're not
They're
being
not
done.
doing
They're not being
enough.
done.
Up to these people's standards.
Oh,
So like the sidewalk on 16, like it is atrocious. Like it's just
it
not-
is right now, maybe, but, you know, after.
No, but it's not paved evenly. If you're in a wheelchair, if you have a stroller, like you could actually like wind up in the road, is what people said.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So I'm just,
Yeah.
that's what they said, you know, I mean, if you look at it, it hasn't probably been paved.
It's better than it used to be, but it's been a while.
Okay, so what,
I was 16, it was just redone.
Yeah. But one of the things that was brought up too was, well, it used to be 20 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. But remember, this is our community today, based on what people
Sure.
perceive it as today,
Yeah.
and being that we have
Interesting.
newer residents, who cares about 20 years ago? I want to know what we're going to be doing about today and moving forward to fix things or attract people to the town.
Snow plowing,
You know.
like tree removal, I'm not quite sure what.
That's
Why
part
not?
of the rural character.
Right.
I think it was excessive, like tree removal, like there's some
Yeah.
areas of town that have been
That's-
deforested.
Yeah.
Is there regulations on how many trees you can remove from your property?
Mhm.
You know, I don't think so. There
I
must
hope
not
not.
be, because
Mm-mm.
people have removed all their trees,
Yeah.
so.
We can remove knotwood.
Yeah,
Anyway,
not we.
not weed.
Well, that's an invasive species.
Yeah, all right, well, I was just wondering about that, because I think our guys do a pretty good job out there.
Was there any recommendation for Gray's Garage at all?
So the idea of the survey, if I may speak, and the facilities is what are the perceived needs in the community? What do people want in our community? And then you take what they want and see if it can fit into a building or something. It doesn't make sense to improve Gray's Garage if you're gonna tear it down and make it a pickleball or a playground, you know what I mean? So now that we know this is for the planning board, now you give it off to somebody, say, here's what the town's wanted, here's our buildings, any of these mesh together, and then you would make those improvements or changes to those facilities based on the needs that go in them. That's the point.
So directly to answer your question, no, nobody came out and said, tear it down, fix it up, or anything like that, but it was a, like it was part of, yeah, we need to use the common facilities in town and make the most out of them.
Yeah, we avoided mentioning any particular facility or what it should be used
To
for,
lead.
but versus what was in, like, you could tear it down, make a nice park, you know, for kids, playground, play area. Right.
Water slide into the river.
So,
There was.
It's an interesting survey, you know, I think it probably hit most of the salient points people that are, what they have concerns of.
So, like Jen was saying, I think what we'd really like to see done, and from our standpoint as the select board, is keeping this alive on the agenda. Whether we put anything more in the budget for dollars to spend, I don't even know if that, how much it is or if it would be necessary. I'd love to see some of this low-hanging fruit get taken care of. Communicating to the town, to the people in town about the Gibson Center isn't gonna cost a thing. I mean, that's just publication and education. The signage and increasing the education about where our parking is, making sure that all the walking trails in town that we know we have on websites available, how do we get that out to the folks and let them know where all of our walking trails are, what the hours are for any kind of event and facility in town or a trail in town, anything like that that we can get out more. I think that's a task for the committee to keep going and saying, let's answer these and check them off the bucket list. So next time we do a survey, it's asked and answered. But the bigger thing is, it's really time for the planning board to do a capital improvement plan. Not a master plan, not a, the big one that was done however many years ago, but a capital improvement plan that says, if we use Gray's Inn Garage, or we need to make improvements or replace the fire station, what improvements do we need to make to the school? And what other facilities in town need to have money put into them? That's something that the planning board should be doing as a next step for the larger capital items. That would be our recommendation.
Just a quick question, only because it's so, I just keep thinking of Conway and what a mess everything is, and I'm so glad paid parking didn't come up in the survey. But,
Parking there, Barbara, is that what you said? Paid parking, is that what you?
She brought it up at the.
do we have the power as a town or as a select board to put a moratorium on the rentals?
There were again, outside of the scope of that committee, and that would be a planning board question, because there were a few things that David discussed that said that needs to go back to the planning board on how we deal with short-term rentals. There's a lot of things that we need to be creative on, short-term rentals being one. Do we, as the select board, come up with any kind of tax incentives for full-time residents, for example, versus giving a tax break to a short-term rental? Or, are there ways that we can be more creative in bringing more people into town, not breaking the bank of the town?
We all get free taxes and the STRs can pay for it? I like
I
that.
love that
I
idea.
like that idea.
Absolutely. So, we need to be more, but we need to be more creative in the way we do things. I think that we've been so successful in the way we set up the conditional use permit and the short-term rentals. Really, I do. I think that's been
Great.
no headaches, knock wood, in the scheme of things, especially when you look at neighboring towns. Can we create a lottery, a moratorium? There were several suggestions in the survey. Again, we kept them out because it wasn't pertinent to this focus. But yeah, there are a lot of ideas that came out of it.
I'm just, the moratorium thing is the only reason I brought it up is because finally Conway is even thinking about a moratorium on building more hotels. Because now they have 3 more going up.
I know.
And it's, we're not gonna have big hotels going up, but I just wish we could have some place for young couples to live.
We've been really fortunate, to your point, though, that the young couple, the school has maintained a steady population.
But there could be more.
Obviously, they are moving into town, and they're just the more affluent ones who can afford to live here.
Right.
That's just how it is, and they are, there are affluent young people, that can afford it and have families, and those are the ones that are moving to town right now, because that's what our price range is, right? The short-term rental information, we did find out that there's 108 short-term rentals, there's 1,500 dwellings in town, so there's less than 10% of short-term rentals in our community. So it seems like I expected a higher number based on the comments, but it seems pretty low at this point. And as far as short-term rental, that doesn't, or housing, that doesn't apply to this facility, but yeah, it sparks how can we do it, or do we not address it as a community and put people out to live in other towns? Is it something we can even address? I don't know.
The other part about short-term rentals, and there's a lot of misinformation about short-term rentals simply because people read about Conway and not Jackson. The majority of short-term rentals in town or in the commercial district and would not be constrained, no matter what kind of moratorium we might consider. And that's not saying there aren't any in the residential area. I'm saying the majority. That means if you have 108, more than 50 of them are here in the town area or along the 16 corridor. And the 108 is roughly about what we estimated we had prior to the time we put short-term rental regulations in place. We estimated we have roughly about 125 in town, which suggests that maybe we don't have 100% in compliance with the conditional use permit, but we're fairly close to it. So there's some data that we could probably find and learn more about and educate ourselves and educate others about what our issues are. And then we still have a Supreme Court case that we're waiting on that will assist us in knowing whether or not we can do inspections that we're constrained from doing currently, and some of the other things that we found difficult trying to negotiate any kind of zoning ordinance. So I think there are some things that we can continue to do and still improve, but we're still waiting for some shoes to drop.
I also want to say that if it's 108 or if it's one short-term rental that's ruining a resident's experience, then it's impactful. So it doesn't matter if 50% of our housing is short-term rentals or 5% is. If it's changing the neighborhood that you live in, then it's affecting you. So, you know, we can throw around all kinds of numbers, and we talked also about the housing costs in Jackson. So if the average cost of a house, and we use 600,000 because you can go from anywhere from 400 to $1 million too. If you have a $600,000 house, for just your mortgage and taxes alone, your monthly note would be about $4,000. So if you think affordable housing is going to happen in Jackson, it's not. It's just not going to happen unless someone were to donate property and take that on themselves and really take that loss. But there's not a lot of property in Jackson to build something that would be affordable housing. There are certainly areas around us that would be more susceptible to bring on affordable housing. But if you look at somebody trying to come here and build multiple unit structure, it's not even feasible. And then you talk about bringing younger families in that have a house to buy for $600,000. You know, that's a tough one.
But I think, Bill, talking to the planning board chairman, is it possible that we could maybe restructure some parts of the zoning ordinance so we don't have a 200-foot frontage, it would be 100 feet instead of 200. Smaller lots, breaking up some to be used for maybe less money to cost a small amount of land, and we could maybe do something. I'm just, just a curious thing, but it's possible. In some sections of the town, maybe the zoning ordinance can change a little bit and make it easier to buy something at less money and develop it, possibly. I'm just, I'm just grossing those.
And we did do an affordable housing review back in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And we did make changes to the zoning ordinance to accommodate some improvements, and we did do that. We reduced the amount of frontage that was required for affordable housing. We reduced the amount of land that was required. We had done that.
Okay.
We have done those things. Did we go far enough? That's an easy argument to make if you want more density of housing. And we went from 200 down to, I think, 125, and that was as much as the traffic was willing to bear at the time.
Something I think that should be put on that list, and something that I see, living here all my life, that we don't look at 10 years ago, 20 years ago, as Barbara said, but what we need, what this town needs to look at is we have a certain amount of people today that love the rural community, they love everything about Jackson, and they don't want to have a lot of change, but the biggest challenge, whether it's affordable housing or short-term rental or what have you, is the challenge this town's going to face over the next 20 years is going to be a very expensive price tag to keep at least the level of all the services we have today. Whether it's 160 to 200 calls for the volunteer call department, or 4 full-time police officers, or 4 full-time highway department, or people at the transfer station, that's, to me, absolute priority of looking forward, because it's getting harder and harder. And, you know, people that are here that are committed, that are loyal, that work and do different things of all those different departments, are all getting older. We don't have a lot of young people doing them, but we have a lot of young people in this town that could be doing them, but they have good jobs, they have the financial situation where they do other things. That's going to be a big challenge, and I really think that should be top of the list for the planning board, the select board, everyone and every resident. How do we do this and keep this town, the nice rural character, and take care of those sidewalks, and take care of the roads, and take care of the chimney fires, and take care of the break-ins and the traffic problems? It's going to be a huge challenge, and I kind of hit that a little bit at the meeting a few weeks ago, and to me, that's more important than anything we talk about.
Jerry?
The one group that's been successful with building houses that are affordable, Habitat for Humanity, only selects sites that have sewer and water. We don't have any of that in Jackson. We have water, but no sewer. Where we have water, there's really no available space.
Yep.
And you know, I would say that the other, you know, sacred cow, golden goose, call it what you will, in this town that is unusual, you know, except locally here and some other towns, is, you know, we focus a lot on short-term rentals, but the reality is that the majority of the homes in this town are not owner-occupied. They're second homes.
That's right.
You know, and they're not short-term rentals, they're just houses. And that's, from a tax rate standpoint, that's pretty sweet. But from a livable community standpoint, it has its challenges. I mean, I know houses, we probably all do, where they're not occupied more than 2 weeks, 10 days a year.
Yep.
And they don't require a whole lot of services, but they also don't put much into a vibrant community of residents and diversity and things like that. So, you know, it's a double-edged sword when it comes to the majority of the housing stock in this town. And most of those houses are not going to go on the market and be affordable for entry-level buyers either.
Right.
So
That's why we have a low tax rate.
But that's right, it's
Yeah.
the tax base.
So I just wanted to just make sure I'm understanding this right. Being a member of the facilities committee, but a poor member because I didn't attend a lot of meetings.
So valuable.
So I think it seems like from this survey, there's not the information to be brought forward to the voters to say like, well, it looks like the school should expand, the fire department should expand, Gray's Inn should go to the ground, and we should invest money here for broken windows or something like that. It sounds like this helps inform, but then I'm just looking at the budget for the planning board to up, you know, the money going to the capital improvement plan. So that's kind of the way things are going, because I know folks are asking me like,
Yeah.
I thought we were looking at all the different facilities and, you know, and I can see kind of the mindset now, hearing and missing meetings, but now hearing
Yeah.
more behind the survey.
No, you're right on though. That's what.
Because I think people are gonna be like, wait, we budgeted how much information, or how much money
25.
towards this?
Yeah, and we definitely
Thousands.
didn't come close to using that, and
Yeah.
whatever the dollars are, I mean, there's certainly a concern, but the information that we gathered from this was really, where do we need to go? Yeah, and where does this go from here
Yeah.
without dying? And we don't wanna have a survey with this valuable information and have it just go away. So
Yeah, 'cause it's
that's where we
interesting.
say, you know, we had a great amount of people on the committee. I think we had started out with close to 20 people on the committee. And it sounds like a lot for a committee
It's
but it
a-
was such a good workable committee, and not everyone was at every meeting, but I think, like we said, we have subcommittees or a person tasked to knock these things off the list. And then the planning board, as the major focus, does a capital improvement plan based on what we learned about all of the facilities, and also how many vehicles we have in the fleet of the fire department and where they're housed, and do we do a sprinkler system? All those things need to be taken into account in a major capital improvement plan.
And did I hear you correctly say that no one was willing to have their taxes raised?
I'm joking.
Okay.
I was, yeah,
I think I said yes.
yeah.
Okay.
I think I
I'm
said
willing
yes
to have
too, but
Jake's
we didn't even
taxes
put the ends, yeah.
It can't be completely true, because I did a survey, and I said I was willing to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to have our
Within
taxes
reason.
raised.
Right.
But the point of the
Always
survey,
is.
right, is,
Yeah.
is that we don't wanna be like a neighboring town
Right.
and massively spend money, which was
Exactly.
on a
Right.
fire station, and then say, oh gee, maybe, where would we put public bathrooms?
Exactly,
Yeah.
Maybe we should have gone for cheap money right next to the fire station
yeah.
while they were building that. It's
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
duh, right in the area
Yeah.
that it should be. So you just want to take a look at what does the community want. We found a lot of really good information, and the planning board can have all of that information because there were some great ideas.
Right.
And there was things that came to light, like I didn't know we don't have a shelter in town.
Yeah.
To put people, like, we don't have a facility that we can, if they need a family or something needs to go and have showers and a place for a little while. We don't have that in town.
Well, we got arrangements.
Right.
No,
If-
but,
But
but,
if someone, yeah.
but before we go spending money in a capital, maybe we should make ourselves a little more resilient. right?
But it is actually, yeah, so it actually is interesting when people say there's not services. So I'm just sitting here thinking, right here in Jackson, we do not have the Jackson Center for Senior Services. But it's a small rural community. And rural communities work with other rural communities on a regional basis.
Yeah.
So getting folks to understand that
Mhm.
might be an important part, so.
Yeah,
And I clearly see that it says that we need to work on the fire station.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's overwhelmingly came
Yeah.
back. And then the school as well,
And the
like, if you wanna continue to have, you know, a high real estate value, you need to have those services, you need to have a fire station, you need to have a school.
Mm.
Because people who can afford to live here are gonna wanna send their kids to a good school
Mhm.
that looks good too, and it is up to standard
Safe.
codes, we're not.
Yeah.
In fact, the school is probably the biggest magnet for people moving here.
Whether you have kids or not, you wanna,
Yeah.
and if we get rid of the school, the taxes are all gonna go up,
Yes.
because it's gonna cost us
The,
more. So anyway, don't need to derail, go ahead, sorry.
the one thing that I think an awful lot of people forget, or maybe don't realize, but from strictly a town side of our tax situation, taking away the school, taking away the county, and just looking at the town, we're either, and I haven't looked at this for a few months, but we're either number 2 or number 3 lowest town tax rate in the state of New Hampshire out of 304 towns. So a lot of people look at that as, because they don't spend any money, but we do. We spend a very good, adequate amount of money to manage the town. But that hurts us with grants, with all those sort of things. They look at, we're a property-rich town. We got a lot of very rich houses and high-end, and pays a lot of taxes. So, you know, a lot of people look, from the outside looking in, well, Chris, the town of Jackson can afford to put $5 million in a fire station. They can afford to build a new school. You
But
know,
we've been
it's a
very
reality,
fortunate as a
but
community
it-
that people
but-
have donated money and given the town money and
Yeah.
given us buildings.
I understand.
You know, I mean, that's unheard of in a lot of communities. So
Right.
we've been, we are rich in philanthropy in this
Right,
community.
it is, it's great.
That's what helps keep our
And
taxes low.
volunteerism as well.
We're gonna work
Well,
it.
But I would just say, but the reality is that our tax rate is lower now than it was 20 years ago.
Right.
That's just the numbers. You know, when you adjust, you look at those 10 years here, that's not adjusted for inflation, which is almost 4% a year. When you factor in inflation, our municipal, our school, and our overall tax rate is lower than it was in the year 2000. And so when I hear people like, oh, the taxes are out of control, yeah, they are, in a sense. You're paying less than you were 20 years ago. And we also know that that's a pretty good deal for a lot of people, and it's when I heard, you know, the number one incentive for people moving here is a good school, I think one of the number one incentives for people moving here is a darn low tax rate. A low tax town and a low tax state doesn't get much better than that.
So, in closing, I would like to, like Jen said, leave this on the agenda. I will reach out to the committee and we'll come up with some ideas of committees that we can bring forward, subcommittees that we can bring forward to take care of some of these issues. And then we'll talk to the planning board as well about moving forward on a capital improvement plan.
One more.
Does that sound?
Yeah, it would be one more question. but
Just to comment on a capital improvement plan, I'd like, from my personal opinion, you got two ticking time bombs out there in a sense with a capital improvement plan. You know you got, it's 300 and some odd people, a school and a fire station.
Right.
Community-owned property projects that need to get done. And I would hate to see the planning board and or the selectmen get bogged down in the case of those two, they should be on the forefront and that should be dealt with fairly quickly. We don't want to take 1, 2, 3 years to come up with a good handle of what we're going to do. I just hope that everybody agrees that that's got to happen.
A capital improvement program is usually something that would be initiated and completed within 1 year.
It has several times in the past, and I'm just reminding that everybody should realize that's got to get done.
I have no
You
idea.
don't drag it
I have
out.
no idea how it's been done in the past. Last time it was done officially was 20 years ago. And they did a really good job because it's been useful for 20 years. So I have to say they did a great job.
And the one before that, the same.
And so, the folks who are doing it, I think, did a great job. But to the point of everybody in this room and everybody who's looking for change, we have new needs, new expectations, and what you did 20 years ago may be useful for year-on-year needs, but not on larger ticket items. And I think those are the things that need to be addressed, as well as some of and I think the survey is wonderful, because it does give some focus on some of the things that are just not being addressed, and some of the things that are just not being done. And both those things need to be addressed in a capital improvement plan.
Didn't they, you guys started the capital improvement plan a handful of years ago. Did it just go defunct?
That was a start, but we weren't authorized by the Board of Selectmen to do it. And so the planning board cannot do it without authorization. We started a process, I initiated the process to begin because I felt we needed to do so,
Yeah.
and then it did not gain any traction.
That's where.
We
All
made
right,
a motion.
all right, folks, we have to move on, but this obviously is a good survey and it got discussion going here, so I think we know where we're going.
Then
This is gonna take a little time. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right, so, the next thing, the Tyrell Communications Tower Agreement, we're still waiting to hear from our attorney. Jim Trojan is selling his land up there. We want to make sure that everything is, so that we can use it the way we've always used it. But we still don't know, Jay.
I haven't heard
It's
anything.
pending. It's all
Yeah,
pending.
we just got an email, I sent it to both of you from Jason.
And
This afternoon?
Yeah,
Okay.
it just came in. The new owner doesn't wanna do the agreement until he actually buys the property. So the agreement is as it is now.
Thanks, Jen.
I knew that's what Jason had said, that sounded like the way that it was
Yeah.
gonna go.
Yeah,
I thought he was gonna get a feeling from him as to whether,
you were copied on the email, so you can see it, you can look at it tomorrow,
Okay.
so.
So
So that's
let's
all.
put it on the next agenda to
Okay, yeah.
hopefully finalize it.
All right. But is this, is it pending the sale? Is it close to being sold? Does anybody have any idea?
No, we don't know.
Okay.
But he doesn't wanna change the agreement, he doesn't wanna,
All right, until he owns it, and
and then maybe we'll think about it, so.
then,
The agreement is as it is now. It's
I see.
staying,
It
yeah.
allows us to do the things we want. Okay, all right.
maybe we look at it and see if the cross prospective owner wants to meet with the select board or something in a non-public or whatever.
That would-
Jason's been dealing with this owner's lawyer,
Okay,
so.
all
Okay.
right. we'll
All
do
right,
that
we'll
then.
get to the point, but
Thank
try and,
you.
whatever conversations you have with them or communication, let them know that we are willing to get involved
Yeah.
to find out more, including, of course, obviously, the fire department, emergency vehicles, everything, okay? All right. Maloon Road, does everybody remember Maloon Road up there, our old landfill? That, we fought the feds to try and keep that open as a burn pit a long, long time ago, we lost, obviously. But anyway, we shut it down, and there are still work that's been, they're always doing some groundwater monitoring. And they're getting into another phase of it, they're happy with what we're doing, but they want to do something a little bit more, that's gonna cost us, is it $9,000 to $12,000, I think I see here? But, again, it's something that has to be done, they have to check the groundwater, I mean, obviously the Wildcat River is right there, and they wanna make sure. The good news is, for all these years, I mean, that thing has been closed down, that was a long time ago, and, we haven't, no, it wasn't in the 70s, because I was still selecting, I was a selectman at the time, so we did it
in the 80s.
late in the 80s.
80s, right,
80s,
4
90s.
weeks.
Yeah.
So,
I used to go to.
so anyway, I guess I'm gonna make a motion.
Hold on, is this 9 to 12,000 in addition to the 3,000 that we have in the budget every year?
So I mean, we already have some savings in there, so I'm increasing the budget by 8,000, so we
Okay.
have a little.
So I'll entertain a motion to pass this article, or,
No, that's just the
No,
contract,
the
you're signing the
contract.
contract.
right?
Yeah.
We have to make a motion.
Make a motion for
Right,
the
okay.
contract, yeah.
So make a motion, somebody want to make a motion to sign this contract with HEB?
I will make that motion.
You make it?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is that part of the budget here, Julie, for
Yeah.
next year?
Sorry?
Is that
It's in
part of the budget for next year?
Yeah, it's being covered, yeah.
Right.
Just a comment, if I, Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
very
just,
quickly.
just,
Always thinking how, since that's in my neighborhood, and we were just talking about this, depending on how the groundwater shakes out, it might be a feasible site for some affordable housing in this town. Since the town owns the site, they can dictate the terms.
good idea, maybe.
So, both.
I wonder though what happens if you disturb the soil there and all of that, you know, what?
Put everything on here,
Because
so I'll take down to the.
That's a nasty site there for a while, you know? We put some fill in there.
Where do you live?
Remember?
Ghosts will be ghosts.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, really. All right, okay, the Carroll County District Planning Committee, and they want us, Julie, could you again explain that, what is that about? The Carroll County
So-
District Planning Committee or somebody here?
Well, they were here, what was it, last meeting? And we had the hearing on it to request for approval to put a warrant article on to become a member of the communications district. But additionally, they would like you guys to appoint 2 people, 1 member and 1 alternate to be, to go to 2 meetings,
Yeah,
to be a part of the planning committee.
Meetings a
In
year,
Ossipee, is that where those meetings?
It's, they can do Zoom.
Via Zoom.
and it's 2 per year? Or
Well,
2?
it's just, there's 2 meetings coming up
Oh.
before it goes on the March
Oh,
warrant, and they would like somebody to attend these meetings.
So, you
and
know
just,
that,
just to further, this is the committee that's working with broadband, the broadband initiative.
Right.
So that sort of addresses the more internet access in
Yes.
our area.
now they need warm bodies, not necessarily selectmen. So let's just get that out there, that we need a couple of appointments, unless you or John would like to be on as an appointee, an appointed person to this thing. Or we'll just put it out there and see if we get someone to come forward.
When do we need to get them by?
Seven.
I didn't see any hands.
Yeah, they were
right
hoping
there.
that someone would
Any hands in the...
volunteer for it.
See.
When's the next meeting?
Next Wednesday, I think.
Can't do Wednesdays.
I know, we talked to Bartlett today, and Vicki Garland is gonna
Be the rep.
go, yeah, she's gonna go to that these 2 meetings,
Right.
or she's gonna do it via Zoom. The only way she'll do it is if it's,
Zoom, okay.
yeah.
But again, it doesn't necessarily have to be selectmen, that I know, so.
Again, what is it? What?
It's the Carroll County Communications District. They're talking about broadband.
I'm not raising my hand to do it.
I was gonna tell you no.
Thank you.
But
I think you
I
just
have a
did.
list of people who I've been in contact with concerned about their access to internet and phone.
Mhm.
I will
Yeah.
Talk to
send
them.
that to you.
Very good.
Or
Okay.
respond to them CCing you. You or who?
All right, if you don't find anyone by Wednesday, I'll get on the Zoom call
Perfect.
next week, but I would love it if you could find
And
someone.
then,
that's
yeah,
great.
because they, okay.
Okay.
That would be
Keep me
awesome
posted.
because they would
Yeah.
talk exactly to the people.
Yes.
Good.
yes.
Perfect.
You
Good,
have to talk.
all right, excellent. All right, we have a couple of, any more discussion? We have a couple of short-term rental applications for approval. Paul Mackin, 176 Dundee Road, it has been approved, they've done what they need to do. And we have another one, WEIDA, W-E-I-D-A, on 138 Green Hill Road, map R12, lot 170. All their documents are in order. And so we're able to sign these 2 permits. So we have to make,
Hold on,
If I may, just,
are there people?
one of these, I believe, when we did make a comment regarding the fact that all of the advertisement was correct, the number of bedrooms listed was inaccurate. They have only 3 bedrooms and they listed for 4.
shame. But didn't they resolve that, wasn't that part of this that was resolved?
She did update her advertisement.
Oh,
Yep,
Okay.
No, that's the one that changed several times,
yep.
right?
No,
No,
no, no,
this is
no,
not
this is a brand new one.
Oh, okay. All right.
So it's been corrected since
She did tell me that she was changing one of those bedrooms into an office. And I asked her to send pictures.
That's what you do.
Well, that was a good thing because there's only 3 bedroom septic and it's only.
Yeah, no, yeah. She did.
All right, so they're both okay to approve?
You can still put 5 beds in 1 bedroom.
Then I'll make a motion
Yeah,
to approve the 176 Dundee Road, map V15, lot 3, sub lot 1.
I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye. And I'll make a motion to approve 138 Green Hill Road, map R12, lot 170.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Be sure I get these things. One is the other side. And what do we got? 1, 2, 4. All right. All right, I guess now at this point, just talk about the upcoming meetings.
Anything on the building and driveway permit?
No, there was nothing there. Okay. So upcoming meetings, Tuesday, February 7th at 3:30 here, and then we'll have another budget hearing, number 2, following the selectmen's meetings, and that'll be Tuesday, February 28th at 3:30, the end of the month. Can you believe it? All right, before we close this out, any public comments, anything more to say before we get into the budget hearing?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of when town meeting is, and there was an e-news that went out, and I really appreciated it because it had all of those future meetings for the budget hearings and the town meeting. If you could send out another reminder on e-news each time, because we know e-news is the way people get their news, to get people to put it on their calendar and make sure we have attendees tonight and the next budget hearing and the town meeting, that would be great. Thank you.
All right. Is there